A very warm welcome back to my channel, everybody. My name is Karen Saunders. I have another interview tonight. This time it's a little bit different though, rather than previous interviews, because I'm going to be talking or discussing rather the last video that Eric Wilson did on what is slander. And so I'd like to introduce a lady that has never been on before. But she will be doing a few interviews further down the track regarding BEROEAN pickets. Her name is Sabine, and I want to invite Sabine onto my channel tonight to discuss certain things that Eric Wilson stated in his video and that we'd like to address and correct and put right. So welcome, my friend Sabine. How are you going?
Thank you. I'm fine, Karen. How are you?
Very, very well, thank you. Lovely to see you. And of course, as I've just mentioned, I will be formally doing some interviews with you further down the track, but we do really want to not waste any time, but to try and address and iron out all the discrepancies that were highlighted or that came out in Eric Wilson's video on slander. So how did you feel about that video?
I didn't expect anything else, if I'm honest. He calls
Okay.
it Eric Slender video. I call it Eric Slender video because it was actually slender, as we will see in a bit. Yeah, anyone who has their own opinion and speaks the truth about the two of them is accused of slander. It's like being knighted, I think, welcome to the club. They do it as a, I guess, as a lese majesty. It's an offense against their authority, and they believe they are in a position of power. That's how I get it. And however, if Eric does do the same thing, that's quite interesting. It's an entirely different story. He is permitted to do so, as well as we see in a moment. He's doing exactly what we are not supposed to be doing. And he is an epitome of double standards. I personally just speak of him about Mr. Double Standards nowadays, and which will especially be evident in my first interview. You will see it's
Yeah.
standing out quite clearly. Yeah.
Mm. I mean, when you think about the word slander, Sabine, um, for me personally, and I'm just speaking objectively here, I'm not trying to be subjective against Eric, but slander is actually a legal term, and
Yeah.
it's legal in that it refers to a false spoken statement that's
Yeah.
intended to harm someone's reputation. Um, I don't think, certainly from the beginning of this BEROEAN pickets process, there has been slander or false accusations levelled against Eric, his wife, or anybody else for that matter. We've just spoken hard, cold facts.
And calling Philo a slanderer, the latest slanderer now. She gave the most balanced interview. She was so kind and considerate with all in her verdict. Um,
Yes,
it was lovely. I mean, okay, the truth sometimes hurts a bit when you actually you have to listen to it, but she just spoke the truth, and speaking the truth can never be slander. And also be
exactly.
authentic. And I mean, I had that, as you will see in the second part of my interview, with Wendy, um, speaking the truth, and is not gossiping. When I'm actually talking authentically about my feelings, my emotions, when I'm asked, how do you feel? This is no gossip. And what we are doing is neither slander nor gossip. It's speaking the truth. And we would have loved to talk with them directly. Actually, however, they are so defensive. You can't do that. We tried it. We were in the same room. We tried, and it turned out into a kind of debate, and with Wendy always standing up saying, "Oh, let's get out of here," I mean, I feel they like dishing out, but they can't listen when people actually want to help them to see certain things. It was never about their character either. And Eric also in his video, he always says it's a character assassination, it was talking about certain behavior, as they are doing it with others as well all the time, just to make sure what people were feeling. And I think this is no slander, just to sum it up, it's just speaking the truth and being able actually to address things on a majority level, yeah, that's what I feel.
Exactly. Exactly. And yeah, and also in his video, he's actually replied in some of the comments by saying that he tried. He's tried to make peace
No,
with you.
no.
There's no evidence. He's never ever gotten in touch with me.
If I can chip it in, at this stage, he actually escalated things, instead of
Right.
a peacemaker, he had to basically turn it into a power game to show us who the king is, basically. I'm obviously not a native speaker, so I'm using certain terms. Sometimes they might sound, perhaps, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but they can come out like I think, so I hope
Yeah.
that's okay.
No, I think the majority of people that are discerning and that can see through all of this will absolutely understand that nobody's come on here kicking and screaming and shouting and arguing. I mean, somebody like Eric and Wendy, that's exactly what they'd be looking for, to be honest. And then they could go, hey, that's why we're not talking to them. Look at the way that they're behaving. I mean, to be honest, you'd have every right to be angry and kick and scream and shout at the way you've been treated. But
I
I
was
feel
never angry. I wasn't. I was just
no,
heartbroken. I
yeah,
was
heartbroken. I know, Sabine. I remember it well. I remember the first time I met you. I felt so sorry for you because you had been a true friend, but unfortunately, um, there's too many people that we haven't even interviewed, too many people saying the same thing, that this is how Eric and Wendy treat people when they are challenged. They see it as a personal attack. It's not a personal attack. It's actually questioning a certain behavior. And we would expect the same. I would expect you to call me out if I did something, and then allow me, give me an opportunity to explain why I might have behaved in a certain manner. Do you know what I mean? And then
absolutely, yeah.
try and overlook that, and carry on if you really value that person. But there is no value, and I think from their point, there's no value in anybody. And I just wanted to pick up on something. I should have brought this out in Suzanne's video, where Eric made quite a bold statement about it was Suzanne that gave us the money and rah, but what he failed to admit or to bring out was the financial status of Suzanne once she had gone into retirement. Do you want to just elaborate on that, please,
Yeah,
Sabine?
I told Wendy actually that this is so to speak, that the source of money would dry out because we would have to encourage Suzanne to watch over her money, because she's obviously now retired, and as you know, when you retire, you have less money. So she was always very generous, but she is not a rich woman, She just gives from her heart.
Oh
She's
no.
most loving. And this is why we also wanted to support her in Switzerland. That's a different story we can talk about in one of my videos. I think it will be the third one, to be honest, because it's anyway. We can speak about it because the money almost doubled for the house in the end, in Switzerland. And we didn't want to leave her with this, because it was about the amount of people coming to the gathering. And we hadn't
Yes.
considered that. So we booked it just for a couple of people, apparently, and then it doubled because we were almost 20, you know. But that's a
Yes.
different story. So she isn't a rich person. And Eric and Wendy knew, and this is why his argument doesn't count. Eric and Wendy knew that she would have to look after herself. She would have, I encouraged her, and Sonia encouraged her to look after her health, because she's got lots of health issues. And we encouraged her to use money of her for herself now to perhaps see a holistic doctor, you know, to get her health back on track. That's important. You know, she's always just being there for other people, and time to look after herself now as well. So I was a bit worried, and I said that, I addressed that openly, because I was obviously close friend with Wendy. We were best friends. And so I said, we have to make sure that she looks after herself as well. So this argument doesn't count, Eric. I'm sorry, because you knew, I mean, your wife knew that there wouldn't be any more money coming from her. At least what is me concerned as Suzanne's friend, I would have told her, look, you have to look after yourself now, you know.
Yeah. Well, and what staggers me into disbelief is the fact that, you know, Eric goes on his channel about talking about slander, and not one thanks, not one piece
Yeah.
of gratitude to any of you, for what you did. Not just on one occasion, but 2 occasions they came over to Europe. Am I correct?
Pardon? Would you?
Did they
Yeah, two
come over?
occasions. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe last year and this
yeah,
summer.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, also how our friendship ended, you know, there is one little thing you don't discuss as you would discuss usually with a friend in a loving manner, one-on-one somewhere, hugging each other, you know, and having a lovely conversation, say, look what was happening with you or whatever, you know. But
yeah,
you are dropped like, I don't even know, you know, and you're accused you are basically accused not to be a child of God anymore. That's a different
I know.
story for another interview, but
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
see it happens so quickly. So there is no balance, and it's not, you do something little and you are written off completely, spiritually, as a person. I mean, I can say this now from my own experience, and it has happened to others too, as I'm now aware, you know.
mm,
I
mm,
obviously also um, have Wendy's words in mind, where she actually talks about others in that sense. And I have to see this now in a different perspective, because it has happened to me as well. And you know, so it's all putting this in a different light, showing this in a different light. And yeah,
exactly.
that's a different story, you know.
Yeah, well, as you said, you know, obviously we're going to be doing, you know, more interviews, not just
Yeah,
with you either. I might
no,
add, there's still more people to come forward who want to come forward because they feel it's really serious, what's
yeah.
happened, and you know, they have got their chance to speak up about their experiences too. I just want to point out as well that Eric Wilson made a point about Honus. You know, he'd left BEROEAN Pickets 5 months, you know, after he committed suicide. Well, Eric, I'm just going to say this to you, and you have no idea. It's very obvious to me, because of your own remarks from other people that have spoken about my mental illness, that honest, it's neither here nor there, Eric, whether he left BEROEAN Pickets 5 months after he committed suicide or not. What that tells the discerning viewer is that that man struggled for 5 months before he took his life,
Absolutely.
still dealing,
Absolutely.
yeah, exactly, still dealing with the aftermath of your judicial committee. So that is neither here nor there. Eric, you're on a sticky wicket, my friend. If you start trying to elevate yourself and try and minimize or be condescending with somebody's illness like bipolar disorder. I've never hidden that I struggle with bipolar. Well, I did struggle with bipolar disorder. I have not had an episode since I came to Christ, and that's part of my testimony. But you need to understand, Eric, that somebody who struggles with any mental illness, when they're not well, just like anybody who has a physical illness, you know, like heart failure or cancer or anything like that, if they're struggling with it, they're not going to be functioning at optimum level. And it's no different with somebody with a mental illness. So don't try and use that somehow as though I don't know what I'm talking about doing these interviews. And then you go and pin that message from somebody called Lindsay at the top of your comments. Why are you doing that, Eric? Why are you trying to make a spectacle of me? Because all you're doing is making a spectacle of yourself, sir. And actually, it shows your lack of compassion and empathy for somebody who struggles, mentally speaking. So our brother, who's no longer here to defend himself,
Absolutely.
that's for another interview as well.
Yeah.
Interviews, should I say, that are coming up.
Yeah. A
We won't
series
be
of interviews.
a series of interviews. We're not
I
even going to
think
be
four at
discussing it
least
here.
on that one alone.
I've got 5 years. I've got as long as it takes, you know,
Yeah.
because these people, yeah, they've had a gutful of BEROEAN
Yeah.
pickets, and you know, you know, the word slander that you just banned about, Eric. When actually you're the one that's doing the slandering, sir. You're the one that's
Yeah.
saying people are antichrist and they're not children of God. But you need to look at yourself, and you are not prepared to do that. And now neither is your wife. But when the mirror is held up, what are you going to do about it? I believe that you've already said to somebody that wouldn't it be a lovely outcome if we could all put this behind us and reconcile? Well, Mr. Wilson, are you going to listen to what Jesus said at Matthew 18? When somebody's
Mhm.
got a grievance against you, are you going to leave your gift at the altar and come and make peace with us? You know, people have a right to speak up. The choice is yours.
You know, I'm starting to wonder. I've got a few points. Does Eric actually believe what he says in his video? Does he actually believe it? I was wondering, and also he only raises his voice and slanders others when he has nothing else to offer. I noticed that, you know.
I've
So it
noticed that too.
the
I've
spirit
noticed
of
that too.
attack is the
Yes.
best form of defense, you know. It's actually called deflection. It's gaslighting. It's called deflection and or distraction. So that's the psychological term for it. Then does he really believe that belittling and slandering others is the solution? It's
Exactly.
sometimes it's like even it feels like bullying what he's been doing here to actually make us shut up, you know. What remains when his mask finally falls and there is no one left to impress, you know? Does he not realize that his audience is shrinking and that people start to see through him, you know? And
Yeah.
that is not caused, it's not about division. They are actually causing their own division here, you know? They are causing these issues that people are looking through them and they just fade away now from them. We have
Yeah.
talked to so many who have faded from the BEROEAN pickets, you know, because they are kind people, quiet people. They don't want to have any trouble, so they just fade away, you know. And they feel there's something really serious wrong with the BEROEAN pickets for the last year or so, you know. So these are, and then also people are saying more and more, Eric sounds like the governing body. There's even one of a quote in one of the comments. This under this video, you know, he sounds more and more like the governing body, you know. First of all, I want to say that he obviously did, for me, it was a huge mistake making this
Yeah.
video, you know. He didn't himself do a favor here, you know. And I want to point a few things out, and you might want to ship loads of stuff up also in. It shows his desperation, first of all, and manipulative behavior. You can, I mean, people who watch it with a discerning eye or understand a bit of psychology, especially about narcissistic behavior, can see right through these kind of tactics he actually uses here. He portrays himself as the victim. He himself lies actually in the video, makes unfounded accusations, slanders, and leaves out important facts. Leaving out important facts is also important, because I have been told, and I'm always looking when I'm watching videos, yes, you call me a conspiracy theorist, you might do, but what we are actually always doing when we watch videos with a discerning eye is to look for information not being told. That is a very, very important point, to watch for what is not being said, because you can distort the whole picture of the truth by not talking about certain aspects. And that is also quite a clever tactic, and he uses this tactic quite often. So the false version of events is meant obviously to avoid responsibility and confuse the truth. He is trying to make the audience believe he is innocent while making others look bad. By portraying him as a victim, he shifts the blame onto others. However, he shouldn't underestimate how smart his viewers are, I feel. Loads of them with time, they will see through this pattern. Upon reflecting actually on the events at our gatherings and our subsequent correspondence with Eric, I realized that Eric frequently resorts to these techniques I just explained, as well as to gaslighting and deflection. He uses this quite often. He condemns actions he himself engages in, and frequently applies double standards, which I will address more in depth, obviously, in my upcoming interviews, I mean. So let's pick out a few parts and start with what I can judge best, as it directly involves me as an eyewitness and someone personally affected. So in the brief section of his latest video, where he talks about me, he makes 3 false claims and leaves out important facts in 3 other events. So I'm starting out now with number 1. I never removed Lutz from our Zoom Bible readings. I'd also like to mention that this wasn't a personal conflict. It's always shown as a personal conflict, but there was never a personal conflict between Lutz and me. It was a group issue. And this is a really important point to make here. So it wasn't just a one-time incident. It was repeated aggressive behavior from Lutz in our Zoom and chat groups. More on that later in my interviews. Second, yeah. I never called Lutz a son of the devil. I never did that, Eric. I wouldn't do that. Why would, However, as you already mentioned, Eric himself had no hesitation in calling a certain group children of the devil himself lately, This is one of the many examples of Eric's double standards, I will discuss later in future interviews as well. Number 3, Wendy never apologized for her abusive behavior towards me. Not that I can remember of. Which I will be also discussing more in depth. The only apology I received from her was for doing it to me, the host and organizer of the gathering and our Bible Zooms, in front of the whole group. It was all about doing it, having this discussion or debate or actually attack in front of our group. Many didn't even know what it was about. They were just shocked by Wendy's behavior and approached me later. I often wonder how Eric and Wendy would have reacted if I had publicly attacked them like that in their own Zoom meetings. They preemptively remove anyone who dares to speak up and express different opinions, which is something to consider. They probably would have just disfellowshipped me right away on the spot, you know, led to the door, you know. But I stayed calm when that happened, actually. I was just really heartbroken. I never attacked her back. So I have always shown her respect. And as I said, I was just heartbroken by her attack, especially because we were very close friends. And she even taught me that if I didn't see things with regards to this topic, pick her way, we are going into more depths here in the second interview, I would no longer be a child of God. So who is she to say something like this? Why is she putting herself actually in the position of Jesus? I mean, that's what it is, actually, you know. Then number 4, before their trip, Wendy suggested Lutz might apologize, leaving it up to me to decide. She said she would understand if I didn't accept his apology, as she knew the whole story and was disgusted by it. So I was shocked when Wendy snapped at me at our Swiss gathering. It was hard to process, especially when a close friendship suddenly shifts this way, you know. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think as well, I remember you saying, Sabine, that, you know, you were so hurt after what Wendy did that you distanced yourself and you limited your conversations just to friendly small talk to avoid
Yeah,
any deeper interaction with her on your gatherings. But she
yeah,
still carried on, didn't she? She carried on hurting
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it
go
was
ahead.
going on always about the same thing, as you will see. It's always the
Yeah.
same thing, that she wanted me to understand her interpretation of a certain scene. I'm going into more depths
Yeah.
in my second interview because it takes time.
Yes.
I want to paint the whole picture so that our viewers can then really understand the whole situation, you know, and can make up their own minds what they think about it, and also think about how they would interpret it and how they would see it. It's also about forgiveness. The second video will be also about forgiveness. With regards to toxic people, it will be also about the fact that forgiveness, we can all forgive freely. I'm forgiving actually freely. I've forgiven also Wendy and Eric already. It's not about this. The real issue behind it is, can I ever trust them again? That's a totally different thing. And do I want to restore the relationship I had with them before, back in the future, back to that? These are totally different things. But I've really forgive. I'm not a person holding a grudge, you know. So it's that is also obviously something for the future interview to look into. What Jesus actually meant, and if it means that we should always let toxic people back into our lives, you know, hurting ourselves again, you know, that is a different story. But anyway, then later, what Eric also left out, I saw texts from Wendy calling me, obviously, the famous nasty THUG. I mean, I'm out of this world, and she's calling me a thief. Instead of addressing things with me directly, asking me about this situation, what happened about this and that, she's calling me a thief. Behind my back, by the way. And she's calling me even satanic behind my back, you know. She's warning friends not having contact anymore with me, you know. It's unbelievable. And I will address this also later in the depths. She's also used the F word during our open dialogue with them at our German gathering. And I tried to stay calm, as I said, to avoid more conflict. I mean, we managed in the end, although I was really in a bad state, I have to say, this summer on both gatherings, which I so much looked forward to, and I was in a bad state after this. But we managed afterwards that many didn't even realize what was really going on, and they still had a nice time. We had really lovely feedback after our gatherings. So, and that took me a lot of strength, actually being so heartbroken and yeah, making sure. I mean, I look at some of the photos, obviously, and I just look at myself and I think, oh, because it's not the Sabine I know, they always say, you are always smiley, this is what you are, and I look very sad, I was, yeah. But anyway, when he seemed to want the apology they expected from me, that's an interesting point. He talked in his email about it, Eric, and they talked in our gathering in Germany and in this debate about it. It was about that I didn't say back, I love you to Wendy when she said it 3 times in front of witnesses. Well, I was too hurt, obviously, it would have felt insincere. It's telling, and it's actually telling that she emphasizes the witnesses again, because it seems that it was always important that others will see what she was doing, or making them it known that she was doing certain things. So I don't know why it is so important to emphasize witnesses, and why it is so important to say here, I didn't say it back, okay? This was apparently one of the major issues they had with me. And then she also claims that I was not giving her enough attention at a concert. I overlooked her at a concert in a care home, in Margaret's care home, even though if she had taken a closer look, she would have seen that I actually filmed the entire event for Margaret because she wanted to have all the songs. Her daughter was was one of the singers, so I was just filming everything for her, So I had always her, Margaret's basically mobile phone in front of my face, Those were the 2 things I was accused at that debate of our German gathering, besides looking angry, which I wasn't. I was heartbroken, but this is also a different thing. I mean, obviously, after everything what I have experienced, even anger would have been completely fine, but I wasn't angry, I wasn't suffering from PTSD. I was also in a kind of freeze mode at that debate, so I didn't say much at that debate, and I later apologized for my unattentive behavior in an email, to them as well. That I overlooked her, and yeah, but these were the issues. Just to say, because it was obviously I didn't say anything in that kind of attack. I was attacked. I was actually spiritually abused, as you guys will see. But anyway, number 5, Eric mentions why he actually removes the French and the Italian groups from his meeting schedule, but he keeps completely silent about the German group, besides just stating he had removed them as well, most likely to cover up his smear campaign against our group and how he slandered us. And more is to come in part one of the interviews, And then number 6, finally, the spiritual wedding this summer at our German gathering. Eric conveniently leaves out the fact that the bride was still legally married to someone else when he conducted the wedding. The group was in, yeah, please go ahead.
And also Not to put too fine a point on it, yes, Eric did admit to the fact that one of them was not legally divorced, and they'd only just met. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. They just saw themselves. I mean, obviously, they spent lots of time in Zoom. I was concerned, and I talked to the sister. I talked to her, and I said, "Oh, are you not rushing into things? Herman is just basically widowed. You know, he lost his wife in March. You are not even divorced. Do you not want to take time to get to know each other a little bit more? You know, they obviously spent lots of time at Zoom, but they only
Right.
had met once for no more than a weekend, once basically before they got married. You know, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And there was
Okay.
another very important point a brother said to me, you know, because initially we were invited to the spiritual ceremony, but later disinvited and asked to only join for lunch instead. And I was told then by the bride they wanted to avoid a discussion that she was still married to someone else, you know. So they were aware that this could cause problems. And Eric was aware, obviously. One brother later suggested it would have been considerate to inform the whole bunch, you know, allowing them to decide whether to attend based on their conscience. They didn't consider the conscience of the attendees of the wedding either, you know. And I feel he has a valid point here, you know. So what would they have done if they had known that the bride wasn't legally divorced yet, you know? Would they have gone, you know? It's a valid point. Obviously the bride was very excited, but also she was worried about how it could be possible to marry spiritually while she still wasn't divorced, you know. So her conscience kicked in too. However, Eric convinced them that it was okay. He had suggested it to Erman, you know. So yeah, that's a little bit of the background to that wedding, you know. He conveniently left all out, you know. And yeah, so staying with the weddings, actually, I just want to chip in here. My last point I was thinking about before talking a little bit about owners. The last point is actually that Ruth was talking about Wendy and Eric living together. She mentions obviously that they lived together as a couple already at the time when all these bad things happened with Jonas, you know. And so Eric actually destroyed now Ruth's reputation as a witness, you know. However, he has actually not addressed what she also said about them. So he has not addressed if he was already married or not married or living, he was not talking about his own living arrangements, basically, with Wendy at that stage. Yeah, please.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Just before you touch further on his own living arrangements with Wendy, if I can just chip in here. As far as I'm concerned, from what I know about Honest and Gabby, Eric made it very clear on his video about slander that they were in and I quote, a sinful relationship, an adulterous relationship, and they hadn't even, they were on Zoom. So
Yeah.
just off the bat there, Eric, you're actually you're on a sticky wicket there, because you've actually defamed two people's, you've actually destroyed their reputation, and one person is deceased. He's not even here to defend himself. Very,
Absolutely.
very dangerous. Yeah, carry on. Sorry, Sabine.
Yeah. And I mean, I know a totally different story of them, of how they got to know each other. I mean, the whole German group, or Swiss group, yeah, last year learned that Wendy was always saying She let Eric wait for 3 years, and they obviously got married in spring last year. So married, whatever married means now, you know. I mean, it's for me, I tell you, I mean, it's always about being authentic. If someone can prove to me or explain to me it's okay how they live together, I'm the last one to say anything against it. It's just being truthful. Rather, don't speak about something, or if you speak, then speak the truth, you know. And we have two different versions here. And obviously, many say they lived, three of the leaders lived together at that stage without being married. So I'm not going into the thing living together without being married, but living together and telling us, no, we just actually got married in spring last year. So these are two totally different stories here. So which one is actually the truthful story, you know? And he obviously, he completely left it out, I think. If he could have cleared it up, he would have, you know, in his favor. He would have certainly said, look, you guys know I got just married last spring to my wife. You know, he would have mentioned that. So leaving out facts is very telling. That's what I want to say, you know, and you have to listen to what people don't say sometimes, you know, it's really important. Yeah, exactly. And when I want to apply the logic, Eric now basically has applied to Suzanne. We already mentioned Suzanne won't have any further money and donations anymore. However, he obviously assumed she still had money and he threw her out anyway. So I want to say Eric got so many things wrong in just 2 minutes in his video talking about me, you know. So it's fair to assume that the rest of his video is also full of mistakes, at least sloppy research, manipulation, obviously, even lies, and or slander, you know. So we can actually say if in 2 minutes he makes so many so-called mistakes, what's with the rest of his video, you know? Is this any better? I don't think so. And we can go into detail now, obviously, and say, again, relevant contacts were conveniently omitted, leaving an outsider unaware of the full story, while the people mentioned were all portrayed in a bad light. We were all portrayed in a negative light. And I really feel for Ruth, I have to say, when I keep talking about, but for any of them, you know. Then Eric goes so far to slander, as you just mentioned, a deceased person by reversing the roles of perpetrator and victim, knowing he can no longer defend himself, and he frames his friend Gabi of committing adultery with him. And I want to say something here. I have had long conversations with Jonas' closest, how do you call them? Confidants, or I don't know how you speak.
Confident, confidants.
Oh,
Yeah, very good.
confidants, yeah,
Yeah.
who independently confirm what Ruth stated in her video. I also would like to mention that I have known Ruth for 3 years now, and she's a truly honest person and always very accurate, you know. It's always about facts.
Yes, I
You
know.
know,
That's what I picked up. I picked up straight
yeah.
away.
She's
Excellent.
not
Yes.
such an emotional person, but she is really
No, she's lovely.
in detail,
Yeah.
you know, in
Yeah.
detail focused, you know.
She's a lovely
No
lady.
reason, absolutely no reason to doubt her words, and I fully trust her statement. What I have learned from the other confidants is I know, meanwhile, Rona's real name. Just want to mention that. Both of them confirmed that Jonas had just been discharged from the hospital after a suicide attempt, having tried to take his own life with pills. And he was very weak and in a very fragile state. A few days later, then, he learned he had been disfellowshipped from the BEROEAN group And I feel this is truly shocking, you know.
It is
And
shocking.
what did you ask, actually? What did you ask in Philo's video? Do you wanted
Well,
to ask? Yeah.
yeah, I actually asked Eric and Wendy, please, where were you? Where were you at the, you
Yeah.
know, when Honus was in hospital the first time round? You know, were
Yeah.
you there to support him? And he does go into his interview to say that he was supported with money and things like that. That might have been happening at that time, which would have been a standard thing anyway, that anybody would have
Yeah.
done. You know, why make a
Yeah.
big deal over it?
Exactly. So both confidants emphasized that the entire Spanish BEROEAN group of 45 members judged Jonas and Gabi without being allowed to be present.
Shocking.
And yeah, the two had never met before that meeting took place, but were accused of adultery. How could that be true anyway, you know? Or is it similar to what has happened actually with our group? I have to just to chip this in, where we were blamed for something we never did and removed from the BEROEAN website anyway. Similar story,
Yeah,
you know. Also slandered for something, and I
removed.
don't, and
Mm.
Eric said, I don't care what you say.
No,
Here we go, you
exactly.
know. I'm the man in charge of my living room, and I can throw out whoever I want to throw out. This is what he always says, you know. Yeah, he didn't say that like this to us, but obviously that is his
No,
kind of
well, he gives that
wording
impression
nowadays.
anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, he gives that
yeah,
impression anyway.
yeah,
Sorry, Eric, but you do.
yeah. Then the confidant I spoke to most recently, actually this week, is totally devastated by Eric's slander video. They claim Eric is spreading lies and slander about Jonas after his death. The
Yes.
confidant describes Jonas as the kindest, most spiritual and loving man. More information will obviously follow. More
Yes.
interviews will
Yes.
follow, as we know. We have already
Absolutely.
lined up. Yeah,
Lined them up. Yeah, they're coming forward. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
are coming forward now as well.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, Eric's narrative reminds me of the handling of child abuse cases among Jehovah's Witnesses, actually. The congregations and elder committees, as we know, often treat victims like the perpetrators, and then the victims are just fading away, you know. Why should I trust a group that wouldn't allow Jonas and Gabi to be present during the meeting where they decided to disfellowship them? That's the first question I will ask Eric. And how can I trust a group that is so heartless as to do this just days after his suicide attempt? Not even Jehovah's Witnesses are that brutal and cold-hearted, and we know what the Elders book says. You know, you should
Absolutely.
immediately stop all committees, anything if someone is suicidal, you know. So if
Exactly.
someone has already committed suicide, you wouldn't tell them 3 days after having committed suicide or trying to attempt suicide, you're out now, you know, with this fellowship, you know.
It's
You,
disgusting.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
absolutely disgusting,
yeah,
honestly. And now it's
yeah,
coming back to bite them. You see, this is what happens. You reap what you sow, don't you?
yeah. I
Mm.
think these are the points I wanted to make. And
Yes. No.
yeah,
You have done really, really well, Sabine. And I remember when I first met you, oh my goodness, my heart broke for you. You were absolutely broken, you know, from all of this. But look at you now, strong, beautiful,
yes,
you know, and
friends.
we've become very good friends because of
Yes,
all of this disgusting
absolutely.
thing. You know, we are strong, and you know, I've made so many friends with the German group. It's you're all absolutely amazing people.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, you know, thank you very much for coming on and just replying to Eric's
Pleasure.
video. You know, because you know there's two sides to a story, and I think what we're trying to achieve is not to tear somebody down, but to actually speak the truth. And you know, just people need to own their behavior, not make
Mm.
excuses and carry on and then turn everything upside down. You know, long gone are those days where people can pull the wool over somebody else's eyes. We're all more educated nowadays into
Yeah.
certain types of behavior and personality types. So, you know, this isn't going away. But as I've said, you know, there's always a chance for an olive branch to be held out, you know, and
Yeah.
Matthew 18 applied. Matthew 18 applied. Thank you, Sabine. Yeah. I mean, have you got anything to say to Eric and Wendy with regards to that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we tried. We even said we didn't want to celebrate the Lord's Supper before we make peace in our German gathering, as I will also talk a little bit about it in my
Yes.
last interview. So
Yeah.
it was really important for us. I also reached out to her once more in Switzerland, and
Yeah.
there was no getting through. It was like talking to a wall. It was always her perspective. She was so rigid on it.
Closed.
Yeah,
Closed.
closed. She didn't want to
Yes.
listen. And if she's doing a lot of projection, she obviously says now it's my way or the highway. No, Wendy, it was your view, only your view. And we will go more in detail into this
Yeah.
in my interview and
Yes.
show all the bits of the conversation, and then the viewer can make up their own mind what this is about. And there are obviously certain things which are quite troubling also. When someone says, I'm dragging someone into the grave. And
I know. I
you
saw
know,
that text. I
if
saw
I
that text.
actually, if I would see text messages like this, I would just think they're coming from a deeply disturbed person, you know,
Yes. Yes.
or from someone really fanatic,
Yeah. I mean, she was
who is
your she.
radicalizing themselves, you know, in their belief. I don't know. I mean, I would never say that to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Shocking.
just, what? It's
Shocking.
shocking
It
because
is
she obviously
shocking.
she knew me, and she
Well, you were
knows.
best friend. You were her
Yeah,
you thought she was your best friend, and then she goes and messages, you know, Suzanne and says, avoid Sabine. She'll drag you to Sheol. I read it myself. I was
this is
unbelievable. And then they
crazy.
talk about slander. Exactly.
Yeah.
No.
There's
No.
one last point we perhaps
Yes.
can address, not to Eric and Wendy, but perhaps to the other viewers as well. Look, guys, I mean, we were so happy to have Eric and Wendy's videos and about obviously the JW world and all the tactics being used there. And Eric said in his last video, I think, you know, it's something else, talking the truth about and exposing JW. So we are not doing anything else here. We are exposing the truth. And please look at this in the same way. We don't want to slander anyone. We don't want to spread lies. We are truthful people. And it really hurts when we read comments like this, that we are the bad guys here, actually spreading lies. We don't. And so I feel there is a lot of cognitive dissonance at the moment. People have found their so-called peaceful haven, you know, new haven.
Mm.
And now they have to learn about certain things that are going obviously wrong. However, it's still time to amend what is going wrong, to change what is going wrong, you know. Eric, for example, says in one of the comment sections we saw yesterday, he speaks something like, what we teach. We, it's funny, I always call we now, we equals Wendy, E equals Eric, we teach. I mean, it's about what Jesus actually teaches, isn't it? That should what matters, what the Bible, what the scripture teaches, you know.
Exactly. Amen. Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Thank
Amala.
you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Sabine. And I look forward to doing the interviews with you as well, and hearing your full story and experience. And I just applaud you. I applaud you. You're a strong lady, and you take care now, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much for your work, and we are very, very, very thankful for it, grateful, and for giving us a voice here. Thank you.
Everything is my pleasure, and the honor is mine, my friend. Thank you, Sabine.